college, and you, as you just said, you spent 5 years not in the family business. What were you urged to join the business right away? Were you urged to not join the business right away?
So I'm the oldest of three, and I think there was a family business rule that evolved mostly with me in that we had to be outside the business and have at least one promotion in a company outside the business before we were allowed to join.
Hello, everybody. Taylor Robinson here from the Leadership Lens, and today I am joined by a wonderful guest, someone who I've known for quite some time, Brent Stern. Brent is the president of Rogers Enterprises, and Rogers Enterprises is a makeup of the largest and oldest family-owned and operated jewelry retailer in the United States, which is a pretty impressive thing to be able to say. So appreciate you being here very much, Brent, and looking forward to having a quick chat.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, we were just kind of talking a little bit here, and both Brent and I are from a family business, and I've heard a little bit of the story before. Maybe it'd be helpful to the listeners to just kind of tell us a little bit about where Rogers kind of came from and a little bit of the story of how you got to where you are today and a little bit about the business's history.
Absolutely. So the business started back in the 1940s when my family got involved. The jewelry business actually started back from another family business, Holland's Jewelers, and they started in 1910. But in the 40s, my family got involved and through a banking relationship, got into the jewelry industry, had one store that was owned by the bank, and they decided to run it, had no name. And so they decided that the first semi-truck that came by on the highway next to their office is what they'd name the business. And the first semi-truck that came by was Lipschitz Karting. And they said, Lipschitz Jewelers, I don't think so. Let's try the next one. And Rogers Furniture was the next one that came by. And so it became Rogers Jewelers. And it operated as between 1 and 3 stores as Rogers Jewelers for about 25 years. And then there was an acquisition in the 70s for Holland's Jewelers. Mr. Holland wanted to get out of the business, and we acquired Holland's Jewelers. And that's how we became Rogers and Holland's, and have been that ever since. Since then, my grandfather took over the business in the mid-50s and really grew it to about 20 stores. And then my father took over the business in the late 80s and continued to grow the business again to about the number of stores we are today. And he turned the business over to me in February of 2023. And that's where we are today, and looking to continue to grow the business. We love the jewelry business, and I love what it brings and the happiness it brings. And so that's how the business got to be where it is today. As far as me, I came up out of school and joined Motorola, worked for them for about 5 years, and then went to grad school at Northwestern and came into the business after grad school, and have worked my way through many of the departments here until finally coming to president in February of 23.
That's great. I want to jump back a little bit because our stories are similar. You know, we both went to University of Illinois. We both have worked outside of the family business before, but I kind of jumped in pretty much right out of college. And you, as you just said, you spent 5 years not in the family business. What were you urged to join the business right away? Were you urged to not join the business right away?
So I'm the oldest of three, and I think there was a family business rule that evolved mostly with me in that we had to be outside the business and have at least one promotion in a company outside the business before we were allowed to join. And so I was involved in technology. I had a minor in general engineering in undergrad. And so I was drawn to Motorola for that reason, kind of the mix of technology and business, and was fortunate enough to be hired by them and spent 2 years, 2.5 years in audit, and then another 2.5 years in financial planning and analysis, and learned so much there. I was glad that I had that before I came into the business, but it has become a family rule that that's what's needed before officially joining the business.
Interesting. Love that. Love that. Yeah, I took a goofy little job out in Wyoming right after graduation, just like it was something fun to do for the summer. And then I came back, and I wanted to like be my own man type of thing. I didn't want to join the family business. So I got a sales role out kind of where I grew up for a really small company, and did that for about a year. And then kind of realized that I wanted to be in the family business, not because it wasn't enjoyable being outside of it, but I think I kind of got over myself a little bit, and I was like, you know what, this is such a great opportunity to do something like this. And, you know, people who don't have that opportunity sometimes wish that they did, and it's like, what are we doing here? And you and I know a lot of the same people in a lot of family businesses, and And there's a ton of second gen, third gen people who are adamant that they're not going to be in the family business. They just don't want to go that direction for one reason or another. And many times it's because I think they don't like the industry necessarily that their family's business might be in, but you can always take on a role that you're really excited about within the family. If you like marketing, but you're not a business that drives off marketing, you could still play that type of role within it and whatnot. So anyway, it's just kind of an interesting thing.
I was not, when I graduated from undergrad, I was not adamant that I was going to come into the family business at all. And I remember, I don't know if it's a moment, but the action that really made me want to come into the family business, because I was in my FP&A role at Motorola and I made a 7-figure mistake. I was in charge of a P&L for our warranty part of the business for mobile phones. And I made a 7-figure mistake and no one noticed. And I was like, and in the subsequent month, I was able to fix that 7-figure mistake. No one noticed that I fixed it either. And I was like, wow, I'm really not making that big of an impact here. And that is not a knock on Motorola. They were great. And I was on a path to rise through that company and really get some good promotions there. But it was going to be a while till I was in a position where I could have as much impact as I could have here in my family's business. So I remember thinking, all right, maybe it's time to look for something else. And kind of at that same time, I got asked to come on as an assistant to our CFO, and it lined up nicely and made the transition then.
Well, you have this engineering well, first off, a 7-figure mistake. That's a big number.
It is, you would think, but we were a $47-48 billion business at the time, and we were making daily moves that were $100-150 million. So it's a bigger business. You just add zeros, but it's the same principles, and so it was an accounting mistake. It wasn't green dollars, but it was something that no one noticed. So I was like, well, my role isn't having that big of an impact if no one's noticing that.
Also, if you just think about, I mean, a business that's the size that you can make $1 million or multi-million-dollar mistake and nobody notices, then as one single employee, you think anybody notices who you are and
Exactly.
what you're kind of doing. To your point about having an impact, that's pretty funny. So you had this engineering background, you went and got your MBA, and you kind of got this role underneath the CFO. But did you have much? I mean, when you say general engineering, but now you're talking about FP&A, and that's in the finance function, and then you're kind of working under the CFO. So how quickly did you move out of or into finance and accounting as opposed to engineering?
So finance and accounting was my major. The general engineering was a minor. So that was where I was focused, and went to get my MBA with a focus in finance and marketing. So that was always my strength. But I was always interested in tinkering, and a lot of my friends were engineers. So we always liked taking things apart and playing with things and messing with engineering type projects. So I lean into that a little bit.
So you get into the business and you're working in the finance function, and you've kind of done the ring around. You've worked in a lot of different areas of that business, which is the best way to go to really learn it. Where all did your path take you throughout Rogers until you got to where you are today?
Yeah, so like you mentioned, I started working under the CFO and ended up, after grad school, ended up as the controller. And then we needed some help in marketing, and I had a focus of that in grad school, although that is definitely, I learned very quickly that was not a strength of mine. But I spent a couple years in marketing until we found someone better to run that department. And then I always had an interest in IT. And so I moved over into IT in kind of a project management role. And that was really good for me. It helped me learn a lot about the business. So much of the business over the last 15 years has transitioned where, everything has a system, everything has to run through some system, and being efficient to pull data out of those systems. And so I learned a lot about that, and had a really good mentor there who continues to run our IT department. That was very helpful for me. And then I started taking on supervisory roles. So I kept IT under my purview, but took on inventory control and learned a lot about inventory and how our inventory moves through the company. And then retook on some of the finance areas. And then also we have a credit department. They joined and kind of I got a title, which I don't know what it meant, which was executive VP, which was a made up title, but I had like half of the departments reporting to me and had that for a couple of years, and worked through that. And then eventually moved on to president. But before all of that, before I got even into school, I worked in the stores. So when I was between like 16 and 21, I worked sometimes summers, sometimes full years, sometimes just holidays, in our store location selling jewelry, which was a blast. I miss that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Well,
fun.
when you're in the store and you're selling jewelry, I mean, if I think of a 16-year-old kid, they don't know anything about jewelry, but like obviously you have this family business and whatnot. So like, did you grow up like learning about diamonds and learning about gold and silver and these things? I mean, how do you at 16 years old, how do you have the ability to even converse and consult with people who are looking to buy jewelry?
Yeah, I think you have some experience with this, Will, as well. It became dinner table conversation. Like, always around the table, my parents' work was part of that, even during holidays, because my mom's parents were in the business. That was who ran the business before my parents. When we go for holidays, my grandfather would have diamonds out and show me them, or he have his scale out for gold and like show me how to weigh gold and things of that nature. So it was always part of the conversation. So I knew the lingo, and I probably knew more details about jewelry than most teenagers or 20-year-olds for sure. But I did run into the problem of a guest would come up and I would walk up to them and they would look at me like, you're 16. What the hell do you know about jewelry? And so sometimes I could convince them. Sometimes I needed to bring in someone else from the store to help me out, or to turn the sale over to them. But it was a good experience. Being in the store is also immediate feedback. Like you
Yeah,
either sell the guest something or they walk away. And
yeah.
so it was a good learning experience from that point because I could continue to adjust my sales pitch and how I behaved toward the guest. And I learned a lot about my own behavior and how it affected others from that.
Yeah. The customer experience. I mean, that's such a huge thing. You want people coming back. You want to make sure that they had a great experience and you actually had those conversations with folks and were able to see what they liked, didn't like, what have you. And so then, you understand how that face-to-face interaction goes. I mean, being a frontline worker where you're with clients or potential clients is incredibly important for any organization and industry really that deals in that space, which most of them do. And it takes a certain type of individual, I think, to be successful with that and to not be too fake, but to be genuine, but also helpful, but also kind of salesy and all these different things. And so when you think of your business, I mean, the majority of the folks that are under the employment at Rogers Enterprises are these in-store
Yeah.
people. What makes the best type of in-store professional? Who does the best type of job that you're always looking to hire for something like that?
So it's interesting. I mean, yeah, almost 80% of our people are in store. And in my experience, I was fortunate to have some good mentors that taught me, especially some great store managers. We tend to try to hire people that are really anxious to learn and ambitious, do well with us, people that like to talk, and like to express themselves. We've hired a lot of people with backgrounds in psychology or therapy or things of that nature because they're trained at connecting with other people. And that's a huge trait. Like building those relationships is an unbelievable part of our business. It amazes me. We have guests invite our sales associates to graduations and weddings and family events. They really become part of the guest circle of friends. It's amazing. But also creativity. Our best people are amazing problem solvers and creative problem solvers at that. Whether that's helping design a piece of jewelry or finding a creative financing solution or finding a way to customize a piece to make it just theirs, our best sales associates always are looking for a way to make the piece of jewelry specific to the guest wants and the way of acquiring that piece of jewelry work best for our guests. So that's definitely a huge piece of it. And then I think our knowledge is something that like that yearning for knowledge and wanting to be ambitious and learn is huge because there's, like you said, there's a lot to learn in jewelry. Most people don't know a lot about jewelry, and it's different than like going to the grocery store and buying your groceries. It's hard to find trustworthy information. I mean, you can go online and find a lot, but there's conflicting information all over the place, and most people are looking for a guide. So to have people in our stores that are knowledgeable enough to be trustworthy guides to our guests is huge. And lastly, we just lean on our family values. So people that are willing to lean into that, the family values of the company. We have a lot of family that work together here, not just my family, but other people's families, husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, aunts and uncles, things of that nature that work together. We find that to be really culturally significant for us and like to keep that going. And people who are willing to lean into that and kind of the integrity and trust that comes with family values is a huge part of our business.
You just said so many things right there that were like so amazing. Not to be
We've
weird.
worked on that a long time.
I mean, you're talking about selling jewelry, which for many people is a very house, their car, and then probably jewelry is like one of the other like top 3 or 5 things that you're ever going to purchase in your life. And so having that comfortability with an individual who you can trust, who has integrity, who has values, all these things. I think all those words are so important. And we're talking about frontline people.
Hmm.
We're talking about folks who are, working within your stores, and you guys are all in mall stores
Correct.
still, right? All in
Yep.
mall stores. So these are people who are the frontline workers, and you need to hire so many of them, and to find that many people who have all of those attributes I'm not going to say has to be difficult, but to a certain degree, I mean, you need a lot of employees to fill 80 stores or whatever it is that you guys have these days. And so what's kind of like the normal tenure, I guess, for an in-store kind of person? How long are they typically with you guys? Do you have any idea?
Yeah. So it depends is the short answer. We have, let's say, three. If I oversimplify, we have three basic types of salespeople in the stores, and then we also have office staff in the store, so people who take care of the logistics part of running the store. But the three types of salespeople, we have like part-time, full-time, and management. If you split them up into those categories, the part-time staff, who can be extremely good for us, we love having good part-time staff, are generally shorter-lived. Sometimes they're just there for like half a year, or generally for a few years at most, and then they move on to generally what they really want to do. So a lot of younger people in those positions that maybe they have degrees in things like finance, or they're looking to become a doctor, or they're looking to become a lawyer, and they're looking for some job along the way to help them pay for school or pay for grad school or things like that. And so we fill that gap, and those can be amazing, amazing associates, but they don't stay very long. We have a small group of part-time associates that have been with us a very long time, and they're amazing. They have such a guest base because they come in and like their guests come in just to see them. So there's like a very small group, maybe 5 to 10% of our part-time associates who are really long tenured, but they sell an unbelievable amount of jewelry for how many hours they're in the store.
Mhm.
Our full-time are a little bit longer than that, but not a ton longer. But then once we get into management, once people make it to management with us, they're generally career jewelry people at that point. And so we see, management tenure well into double digits often. We have one manager that just celebrated her 42nd year with us just a couple days ago. So, and while that is very rare, having managers that are with us 15, 20, 25 years is not rare. We have plenty of those. And so once people get into management, that tends to solidify their stay with us.
Mhm. And I can speak to that. There's no doubt. I mean, I had the honor to partner with Brent and Rogers on a chief financial officer position. And when I was looking through, I kind of troll through LinkedIn and research all the companies that I'm working with, obviously. And when you go through, you see 15 years, 20 years, 12 years, and I just don't see that often. I mean, the average tenure, even for a C-suite person in larger mid-sized businesses, is only 2.5, sometimes 3 years. And that's kind of become the norm. And within Rogers, your people have been there for a long time. And I think that's really a credit to all of the terminology that you were talking about and what makes someone on the front line really successful. But that goes all the way up through the business. And at the end of the day, it's how you treat those people.
Yes.
People stay with companies that treat them well, that they care about. It's not necessarily about the industry, like I was talking about before, with whether or not you're going to kind of get into something, but it's the way that you're treated when you're there and the people that you work with. And you guys just tend to hire really, really great people, and you treat them incredibly well. It's so obvious when we go there. And let's talk about that. I mean,
Yep.
you hire these great people, they stay there for a long time. When you think of treating people well and employees and whatnot, what are some of the things that you guys tend to kind of focus on? I know it's the family values and whatnot, and that's kind of overarching, but is there anything specific, like actually in the fabric, that you do on a monthly or quarterly or anything basis? Or is it really just, hey, we respect people when they come to us with ideas, we listen, we implement the ones that make sense. We treat them well, we pay them well, we all these things. And is there anything that's kind of in the secret sauce, I guess?
So I think the things that you're saying are very true, especially at the store level. We don't put a cap on anyone's earnings at the store. So the harder they want to work and the more they perform, the more they can make. And there's no limit to that. And the people that make it into management, they've performed well in the past, obviously, to get there and to be promoted. And so they've seen the potential. And I think that's a big piece of, they're seeing bonus checks every month from their performance. And that's one big piece of it. Is we've never limited that. And even when, like right after COVID, when the jewelry industry was really strong, like, artificially strong because of the stimulus money coming in and the lack of ability to spend on other things that people normally spend on, like travel and going out to dinner. Those were not items that we could really do then. We didn't like cut people's pay, or not cut it, but limit, the amount they could make, even though the things were artificially high. And I think that they appreciate things like that. But number one, and you mentioned it to some degree, is the respect. We want to listen to them and we ask for their ideas often. We see how they're doing. We realize these people have lives outside of being in the jewelry store. And gosh, especially during this time of year, as we come into holidays, some of our associates, especially managers, are working very long days. And to allow them a little bit of freedom in their store goes a long way. So we don't dictate every single thing that they have to do in the store at all times. They're allowed to organize the store how they like and decorate the store, within parameters how they would like. And they often do small things for their associates, and we really allow them to run their store independently. And I think that's a trait that they really appreciate, is the autonomy they have in like running and owning their own store. So that's a big part of management.
That's a great thing to have. I mean, I've talked to people who got into the franchising business and were in it for a while, and I was pretty good at it and I made some money, but I kind of didn't like it at the same time, because you have to so perfectly fit within this exact box of, this is where this sign goes at this exact inches above the ground, and everything has to be complete. You're kind of, it's not really your own at all. And so you guys giving store managers the opportunity to decorate how they want and put the merchandise how they want, that's not super common. It gives those individuals their ability to kind of put their fingerprint on their store. It's their store. It just happens to fit within the Rogers brand, which.
And we try to do that here at the home office too. I mean, that was one of the things that, in working with you on the CFO hire, which has turned out to be really fantastic, you highlighted in our recruiting video or job description video that you guys did, which had a big impact. But the autonomy that we give our stores, we try to do something similar here in the home office. When someone runs a department, I might not always agree with exactly what they want to do, but if I feel it's within reason and they want to try something, I want to let them try it. I want to let them try to succeed on that on their own, even if it wouldn't be the choice that I'd make, because I feel like it's their department and they own that, and they should have some flexibility and autonomy to run it as they see fit, with the idea of bettering the business, which I really feel strongly that everyone in management roles, both at the stores and the home office, have that mentality, is they want to try to do things that better the business in the best way they see fit.
Mm-hmm. Well, not only that, but to your point about the, call it commission, bonus, whatever it is, you're giving them the ability to run the store as they see fit, to drive the most revenue to their particular store, which then goes back to their pocket. So it's not just all for Rogers Enterprises, right, but it benefits them personally as well. So they have the best interest of their store in mind, because it directly benefits them individually as well. So it's everybody wins in that.
That's the goal. We love paying big bonuses, because that means that we're doing well as a company too. We're very aligned in that way.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, I can tell you from the CFO search that went so well, that everyone that interviewed with you and with everyone in your business just had amazing things to say about the process. It wasn't this interview of a hardcore Q&A. I've actually had to teach, I guess we'll call it teach, some of my clients on interviewing, because clients or candidates will come back and they'll say, I met with this person for an hour. We went through 56 minutes of just hardcore Q&A. And then they asked if I had any questions at the end, and we didn't get all to my questions. We didn't have time to answer them. And there's this humanity, I think, that comes with interviewing, of really trying to get to know the person and not just having this kind of list of questions that you go through and being very robotic about it. Some of the AI stuff that's coming out now, I don't know what it's going to do to the interviewing and hiring kind of industry, but there's this humanity that's so important, because it's two human beings that need to get to know each other, need to learn about one another and figure out if they have a connection that's so important. And everyone that came away interviewing with everyone over at Rogers just had such amazing things to say about how nice everyone was, how hospitable, you guys were, how they really cared to kind of get to know you. So I can't say enough great things about you and your business. And not only are you running this business, but you also go to the stores. I think on a weekly or monthly, I forget exactly, but you try and see every single store at least once a year, right?
That's right. Yeah. It changes based on schedule, how often I'm out seeing stores, but I really try to see every single store once a year because that's the lifeblood of our business. And as I've experienced it more and more, it's really telling when I walk into a store what happens. The energy I can feel when coming into a store is prescriptive of how that store is doing. Sometimes it only takes, 30 seconds or a minute to get the beat on the store once I'm in there and see what's there and talk to the store and try to either pump them up or, a lot of times most of our stores fortunately are doing well. And so it's fun to just cheerlead and tell them how good they're doing and give them a attaboy or attagirl and kind of keep them motivated for the holiday season. And in this case, I'm going, at this time of year, it's really fun to see them. I love seeing them. I think it's the biggest touch point of our business because the stores are where both the home office and support side of the business meet the general public and guest side of the business. That's where they meet. It's really important to see that. And it's fun to see like when a guest comes in the store and to see the store use teamwork and take care of the guest and make a sale and they're real excited and I get excited for them. So it's a great part of my job.
Yeah, that's great. Well, this isn't about plugging anything, but if anybody's looking to go buy some jewelry for the holiday season, make sure to go to Rogers or Ashcroft and Oak. They do a great job, as you can see from just listening to Brent. Is there anything else you want to dig into here, Brent, before we kind of sign off?
Yeah, we've talked a lot about the stores, but I want to just talk. The stores are easy to measure. And so when you asked a little bit about how long do people stay and hiring and firing, the stores are pretty easy to measure. And the metrics are sales. If they can find ways to make sales and we try to give them tools to do that and they can succeed, they're going to do well and they're going to get promoted. And if they can't, which happens sometimes, this isn't the right job for everybody, then they move out and we try to help them move to something better. But at the home office, it's harder to measure. You've mentioned the experience of hiring our CFO. And I think that I've learned a lot from you and your team in how to look and measure people here at the home office where it's harder and how to run through an interview and create a job description to try to get what we really want. Your team was incredible in doing that. And the idea of a video job description, I really think is genius. One of the things that Christine will often say in meetings when asked, when we have vendors come in or like our bank come in or things like that, and they'll ask her, like, how did you get here? And she'll say, well, I had a good job. And then I saw this video job description, and, I had to look into it. And so your team, like I would have never thought to do that. And you came with your production equipment here to our office and made that happen. So I think that was really neat. And just even the newsletter that you guys send out every month or however often it comes out, I always try to read that because I always get new ideas on something we can do to make our interview better or our job search better or a new tool that we should look into to find things. So I really appreciate that. You've stayed with us even after helping us make the hire. You've stayed with us and trying to help us move forward as a company. So really appreciate that.
Well, geez, man, thanks. That was so nice of you to say. No doubt about it.
Unexpected.
Yeah, well, it's funny you talk about the video, JD, because just on Friday, I'm doing another CFO search right now, and just on Friday, I interviewed a candidate who's spectacular for the job, and he said, I get a message from a recruiter at least once a week, and this is the first one that I've responded to in 6 months. There was a video, and I got to see the hiring manager, the CEO, talk about the company, and it really got me jacked up. And seeing, it was really the gentleman's enthusiasm for the business is really what put him over the edge. Like this guy is excited about growing this thing. He's enthusiastic about who's there and what they're doing and what the next 3 years looks like and 5 years and whatnot. And so that now we're talking, and I'm super excited about it the more you tell me about it. So that's just a prime example of a candidate who, frankly, I think will probably get the job that would not have been in the process had we not taken that little extra step. It's a no-brainer. There's no doubt about it, for sure. Good. Well, I appreciate it very much, Brent. Thank you for joining us today on the Leadership Lens. Really, really a pleasure reconnecting with you. Thank you for having you on and all of your wisdom and kind of going through everything that's happening over at Rogers. Such a great place to work, such a great place to partner with. And we'll talk to you soon. And I appreciate you again for being here.
Oh, always great talking with you, Taylor. Great seeing you, and have a good holiday.
Thank you. You as well.